Hey guys, so let's talk about a topic that most trans people don't talk about, specifically trans women. There's this thing that happens a lot. People who once identified as biological men, which had a significant amount of muscle mass, they were trying to either emulate, be, or look like bodybuilders. And that was me specifically when it came to powerlifting before I transitioned. So yeah, let's talk about it. I would say a few years before COVID, I was 20, 21, 22. I identified as a straight biological male. I was anywhere from 160 to 175 pounds at 5'7". I had pretty decent arms and my legs looked like shit. Yeah. I have very high quad insertions. So no matter how much I develop my quads, if I don't wear the right type of shorts, my legs are always gonna look skinny. So yeah. Um so pretty much going from someone who was obsessed with trying to look more masculine. One point I had a shaved head, I had a full beard, and then COVID happened. So COVID happened, and I was working at a warehouse, and I decided to shave my beard. And at the time, I had a long beard and long straight hair, wavy type straight hair, and I decided, okay, so what am I gonna pick to keep, the long hair or the long beard? And I said, yeah, I'll pick the long hair. I'll keep the long hair. So I shaved my beard. Then a few days later, after all the pain physically of shaving a beard, because you have to use a beard trimmer, then you have to go with a regular razor, then you go with a straight razor. My skin was just exhausted. But then it was like I looked in the mirror and I looked just like my mom. And I was like, huh. And at the same time, I started remembering things from my childhood where anytime I didn't have a beard, I would wear women's clothing. And I guess when I had a beard, the beard was a defense mechanism for me not to wear women's clothing. So when I shaved it, naturally I went back to wearing women's clothing. Um I start looking at social media and say, okay, what is someone who does this? It's either a femboy or a trans woman. And at the time, I felt like, hey, I could be a bisexual femboy. And I got to a point where that wasn't enough. And I started having physical and mental agitation. I felt aggressive on myself. And later, I transitioned socially. Then a year later, I transitioned hormonally and physically. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my story of the long term transition for me. And I feel like if I didn't transition, I would be a very toxic red pill biological man if I didn't transition from male to female, just because the men I grew up around were extremely toxic and I was turning into that. And I feel like God saved me from that life. And that's when I transitioned. Um, yeah, I feel like I've survived a lot longer because I transitioned. I've stayed out of trouble because I transitioned. If I didn't transition, there's a chance I would just be some type of incel or some type of person who's just aggressive all the time and very insecure. But now, transitioning from male to female, to do that, to do that long term, you have to have a sense of security about who you are. So yeah, I'm Jazmine Hana. That's who I will always be. I'm a trans woman. I'm named Jazmine Hana. Jazmine Hana. Peace.